Christa herself, I mean, just as a person, left a mark on people.
We have main engine start.
It's one of those moments, it was so shocking.
4, 3, 2, 1.
It was going to be a very big day in Christa McAuliffe's hometown of Concord, New Hampshire.
And liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
An extraordinary teacher with the dream of touching the future, one woman will become a heroine of education and make history in space travel.
Today I'm directing NASA to begin a search in all of our elementary and secondary schools and to choose as the first citizen passenger in the history of our space program, one of America's finest, a teacher.
Teachers, a treasured group of individuals who inspire, nurture minds, and ensure their students have everything they need to contribute to the world. 11,000 teachers, all over the United States, applied to be in the Teacher in Space program. Over the course of a few months, it was narrowed down to one.
Is that you?
On July 19, 1985, Vice President George H.W. Bush announced Sharon Christa McAuliffe, a 36-year-old history teacher of Concord, New Hampshire, to be the first ever teacher in space.
That's great.
I went for something that I felt I had really no chance in. I decided to overextend a bit and fill in an application that I knew thousands and thousands of people were going to be filling in. But it was important for me because it was something that I really wanted to do. And I hope that a lot of students looking at that will say, well, I know 80 people are going to try out for this team, but it's something that I really want to do and not to be afraid of failure.
McAuliffe said that she was inspired by the 18th century woman who crossed America in Conestoga wagons. She had seen the shuttle as her own frontier vehicle. In the time after her selection, McAuliffe was put through the extensive training required to become an astronaut. Before the launch, the New York Times claimed that Christa handled the vigorous training regimen with delight. She had just experienced weightlessness. The KC-135 climbed to a crest and then went into a headlong plunge. There she was, walking on the ceiling, then floating in the cabin like Superman. And her trainer said that she came through like a fully fledged astronaut. Although McAuliffe embodied an astronaut, she continued to view herself as a teacher. After the launch, the Teacher in Space had planned to live broadcast lessons in classrooms all across America. Working with NASA, the first of these lessons would be titled The Ultimate Field Trip.
Good morning. This is Christa McAuliffe, live from the Challenger, and I'm going to be taking you through a field trip.
Let me just film it like this for a minute, and then let's do it with the thing on the top. There we go.
What weight is the paper?
In addition, it was planned that the children would complete an explorative experiment alongside the broadcast of the Teacher in Space. This inspired teachers everywhere and made them excited to expose their students to such an incredible learning opportunity.
Teachers are excited about this bill.
Not only did this NASA program provoke interest from children, but it also humanized all space missions by sending someone who was trained to touch lives and make children lifelong learners.
There's things that I see a lot of times in a classroom that just makes me want to cry, because kids will set such low limits for themselves. You know, kids have to push themselves a little bit more. I think it makes them feel good. And they don't have to set themselves very realistic bounds sometimes. You know, it's not a thing that I would say to kids, you know, don't dream. You know, well, you're only a C student in English, so you're never going to be a poet. You know, dreaming's okay.
In her application for the Teacher in Space program, McAuliffe described her teaching philosophy. It is my hope that students leave my classes with strong democratic ideals and the tools to be useful citizens. I want my students to feel good about themselves and to have successful learning experiences. To those ends, I try to create a learning environment that is an open forum for discussion, where students of all levels can express opinions and be listened to, where students gain new awareness which will help them survive in a complex society, and where the topics addressed in class are connected to the real world. And Christa's students flourished off this philosophy.
Even though Mrs. McAuliffe was a great economics teacher, I think what I learned most from her was outside the classroom. She taught me that the little person counts and that anyone can make an effect on our society and on the world.
Christa McAuliffe touched the lives of all of her students and taught them so much more than just social studies. She taught them how to really live. Essentially, every move she made under the public eye inspired a new person every day to follow their dreams and change the world in the process. But all of this changed in an instant on the brisk morning of January 28, 1986. For the 6th time that month, Americans tuned in their televisions in the hopes of watching the first private citizen being sent into space.
Good evening. NASA will try again tomorrow morning to launch the shuttle, putting the first teacher in space. High winds and a stubborn hatch postponed today's planned liftoff.
The blastoff of the Space Shuttle Challenger has been delayed for the 6th time.
NASA says that the weather is turning around at Cape Canaveral.
Weather conditions are improving slightly, and NASA officials now believe they will be able to launch tomorrow and avoid those embarrassing weather delays that plagued the last flight of the shuttle.
Forecasts for January 28th had predicted an unusually cold morning. The Challenger shuttle was never certified to operate in temperatures that low, and many of the engineers expressed concern over the ice that had accumulated on the launch pad overnight. The 7 Challenger crew members, dressed in their spacesuits, smiled and waved to photographers as they loaded the crew bus to take them to launch pad 39B. With nearly 500 family members, students, and colleagues observing at Cape Canaveral and thousands of others lining the roads and causeways of coastal Florida, everyone wanted to get a glimpse of the 25th shuttle launch. At 11:38 a.m., the Challenger was go for launch.
Another hour. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
At 11:38 a.m., the crowds watched with clenched hands over hopeful hearts, shouting bye until the astronauts return a week later.
3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs.
At 11:39 a.m., the simple word bye was just an echo. On January 28, 1986, the U.S. Space Shuttle Challenger took off on schedule only to explode 74 seconds later, killing all 7 crew members on board.
We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. Thank you.
Although the teacher in space never got to embark on her ultimate field trip, the love she and the other crew members continue to receive reflects how many people they inspire today. Their endless leadership and bravery they shared left an important legacy on the world, a legacy of dreamers, believers, and teachers, one that inspired others to be successful within themselves, but more importantly, be an attribute to the world.
She did make a difference, and she made a difference for teachers and for schools, but she wanted to also make sure that the kids felt that they were important. Because she used to say to the kids, do you know how important you are?
Even after 32 years, Christa McAuliffe's story encourages others to dream big and achieve their goals. Her story was ended short, but the impact she made on the world will never end. It was because of her incredible leadership and work ethic that we continue to learn the lessons that she taught. She impacted the lives of the students everywhere and will always be remembered as not only a great teacher, but a great person.
I would like to humanize the space age by giving a perspective from a non-astronaut, because I think the students will look at that and say, this is an ordinary person. This ordinary person is contributing to history, and if they can make that connection, then they're going to get excited about history, they're going to get excited about the future, they're going to get excited about space.